Hey everyone, it's John here from MCKAY Hockey, back with another video, and this video is going to be my winners and losers of the NHL trade deadline. I'm going to be going through every single team. I'm going to be doing it differently this year and giving grades. So somewhat of a grade for each team, and then kind of declaring a winner and a loser in there. I'm not going to declare winners and losers for each team. Some teams I'm just going to say, you know what, they stand pat, or they didn't do too much, and they were just there. They just did what they did, and they're confident moving forward. But some I'm going to declare as either a winner or a loser. So if you are new to the channel, please subscribe, smash that like button, and definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section. Let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time. Starting with the Anaheim Ducks. So they only made 2 moves on deadline day. They did get Volkov later in March, and they didn't make any moves until actual deadline day, and they made 2. So they acquired Hayden Fleury, and Hakanpää went to Carolina along with a pick. So they liked the potential in Hayden Fleury. Hayden Fleury was going to maybe be a Seattle expansion casualty for Carolina. And for Ben Hutton, they got a 5th round pick. I'm not going to say they're a winner or loser here. I'm just going to give them maybe like a C, C+. I would have liked to see them maybe pursue some more trades, whether it was Delorier. I think there was something close there with Pittsburgh, or Derek Grant, or there was Getzlaf rumors to the Golden Knights. I think they wanted too much. Same thing with Raquel and Manson. So if anything, they're kind of a loser because they didn't do too much in the fact that they're selling, and they should have acquired more picks. But I think they have the option in the offseason to trade both Manson and Raquel. And maybe they'll re-sign Getzlaf and he'll retire with the Ducks. We just don't know in that aspect. But they do have guys under contract, so I'm not going to declare them a loser. Arizona Coyotes. Another team that could have made moves, but didn't, and they kind of stand pat. I think for the Coyotes, just looking at their roster, they have a lot of older pieces, but also a lot of younger guys coming into the picture. And for a guy like Connor Garland and RFA, he's going to want a huge raise. Well, they trade him in the offseason, and then I thought we would maybe see a Goligoski trade. So not much from the Coyotes, so they just stood pat. Okay, Boston Bruins. So I'm giving them I'd probably give them like an A-. I think at the end of the day for the Boston Bruins, they fleeced the Buffalo Sabres in a way. And while the Sabres were kind of in a tough situation, the Boston Bruins were able to take advantage of that. So I really like the Mike Riley addition for a 3rd round pick, and I really like the addition of Taylor Hall and then Curtis Lazar as well. So I'm going to give them an A-. I think the only other concern for the Boston Bruins at this point is just more additions on that back end, because they are thin right now, and the goaltending health. So that's why I'm not going to give them like an A or A+, and they have been struggling a little bit lately. So I like the Boston Bruins moves, but they do still have a concern for the team. Buffalo Sabres, I am probably going to give them a D. I'm not giving them an F because I think you know what, Kevin Adams tried, and he did have his hands tied up a little bit, but I still think he could have done something where he waited for that Taylor Hall trade on deadline day and tried to bluff a little bit, or tried to use another team to the advantage. I get it. Taylor Hall had Kevin Adams' hands tied up a bit, but at the end of the day, Boston Bruins didn't have to know that. And I think they could have done a little bit more to make other deals. Montour with a 3rd, it wasn't too bad. But I think the Buffalo Sabres, they've got a lot to figure out. So I'm going to give them a D. Calgary Flames, I am going to give them an A. Talk about a team that's just been so bad and struggled, and I'm just giving them an A because they got a 2nd round pick and a prospect for Sam Bennett. So I'm looking at the Calgary Flames right now. I'm giving them a short-term A at this point. They just probably got the best return on deadline day, maybe outside of the Red Wings. We'll talk about the Red Wings here in a second, but I just think for getting Sam Bennett for a 2nd round pick, and then you also got a 3rd round pick for Riddick, I think the Calgary Flames made enough of a return where now they go into the offseason and really potentially shake up their roster. So if they can go into the offseason and really evaluate, really get key pieces back for key pieces of the roster and move forward with guys like Kachuk, Mangiapane, Dubé, hopefully the defense can still be strong. So I like the Calgary Flames moves, and I like the return, so I'm giving them an A for now. Carolina Hurricanes, you know what? They didn't do anything huge. I thought they were going to be a wild card team to do something huge. I like the addition of Hakanpää, and I think for the Hurricanes, they were considering doing something big. I'm just going to give them like a B+, A-. I don't think they needed to do anything big, and I think I like the addition of Hakanpää. He's third in hits right now, so I don't really need to give him a grade, like a B+, sure, but they kind of just, they're comfortable with their team, right? Chicago Blackhawks. Okay, so I really love what they did during this deadline. I'm giving them an A. I think the return you got from Mattias Janmark, I think you just compiled picks here, and I think for Chicago, even like just moving on from Soderberg, getting some like pieces back, I think they were able to evaluate their kind of scenario there, and they didn't really panic and just move on from guys randomly. I think they really kind of sat down and looked at their roster and go, okay, Janmark, we just signed him to a one-year deal. That guy can move on. Soderberg, let's give him a chance to win a cup with Colorado. So I think they were looking at their roster and they didn't break up anything, and they still give them a chance to make the playoffs, but they also took advantage of cap. They also were a third team in that. And I think they were just smart in making deals. So I like what Chicago did. Colorado, I will give them a B+. I think they still wanted to make a bigger move. I would even maybe say A- for them. I think they were smart in what they did. Sakic was smart in what they did. They got goaltending depth. They got a backup in Dubnyk. They got Johansson as well. They got defensive depth with Nemeth, and they got forward depth as well. Soderberg is comfortable in that system. I like what Colorado did. They didn't do anything big, but they filled the roster, and they have depth now. Columbus. Wow. Talk about a team that is an absolute A+. While they were quiet on actual deadline day, the moves leading up to the deadline, wow. Talk about getting the return, getting a first and fourth for Foligno, getting that return they got for David Savard, another first-round pick, and more. So I love this for Columbus, and I think they still have a strong enough roster to go into the offseason where, and now Patty Laine is potentially heating up. I like it a lot for Columbus. Kekalainen was a genius. So A+ for Columbus. The Dallas Stars. See, the Stars for me is like they didn't make any, like, they didn't do anything significant, and they claimed Sami Vatanen yesterday. I think the Dallas Stars, they have a scenario and they have a mindset where, you know what, we can still make the playoffs, and we have guys coming back from injury. I do believe that they were considering making moves like an Alexiak, but I mean, just give them a B or B-. Like, they didn't do anything. C+. Like, I don't think this is a loss. I'm not declaring loser or winner here. Like, I'll just declare, like, winners so far. Columbus. I think you have to put Boston as somewhat of a winner for the deadline, too. So, those are my winners so far. But the Dallas Stars kind of just stood pat. Detroit Red Wings, winners. So, talk about another winner for the deadline. The Red Wings were just great Stevie Y is a genius. He didn't do anything huge. The only thing, that's why I'm going to give them maybe like an A- or A. I think the A+ would have come in here if they did get assets for Bernier and for Glendening, and of course Bobby Ryan got injured. But I'm just looking at that team and just going, okay, they are rebuilding, they're trying to get assets, and they did make a couple small moves, John Merrill and a couple more, but we were waiting for that big return, and then the Mantha and Vrana trade happened, and they get a first, a second, and Vrana for Mantha. Talk about a haul for Mantha. Stevie Y was so patient. I'm sure they've been trying to see if they can find a trade for Mantha because of the inconsistencies there, and he's getting older, and they're trying to start something fresh. And I think Vrana, while he's not that much younger, I think they're maybe like a year apart, or like really close, right? But Vrana, that speed, I think he's going to fit with that youth in Detroit, and they got a first and second round pick. Stevie Y is a genius. Detroit is a big winner on deadline day. All right, Edmonton, I am giving a C, and that might be generous. They did nothing, and while I know they didn't want to give up a first round pick, they still could have done something to acquire, and they gave up a mid pick to get Kulikov. I think they could have done better. So it's really disappointing to see that they just didn't make that effort to do something. Florida, I am giving like a C+, B-. I like the moves. They were kind of like they were making small adjustments, and it looked like they had a plan going in, and then they acquired Sam Bennett for a second and a prospect. That was way too much. I like the Sam Bennett fit in terms of the physicality, and I think Florida's done great this year in terms of bringing guys in. But I'm not going to give them like a winner or a loser in this. I just think they didn't do the best job, and they could have made a bigger move, but that was a little bit of an overpayment for Sam Bennett. LA. Just another team that like didn't do too much. I thought the Jeff Carter, like what they got back for Jeff Carter was good. So I'll give them like in around a B. Like when I'm throwing out these grades, guys, it's just kind of like A, B, C, D. Like it's just if I feel like they did like better or they could have done better or they just did a poor job. I'm not saying LA is a winner or loser here. I think they could have made maybe a couple more moves. I think Dustin Brown could have been traded. I think maybe a defense or two could have been moved. They did re-sign Iafallo, so I think that's a win in itself. Whether you want to call them a B or whatever it is for the deadline, I think LA did a fine job, but they could have done more. All right, Minnesota. So this one's interesting. They're just in a situation right now where they've been a surprise and they didn't really have to do too much. I know they were probably in the Foligno conversations, but I thought Minnesota just stood pat. So don't really need to even give them a grade. Like if you want to give them a B, sure, just for fun. But an A for their season. They've been great this year. All right, Montreal. I'm giving them a B minus. I think they got depth on defense, and I thought Gustafsson, whatever, they made small moves. John Merrill is a good, underrated bottom pair defenseman. So I think the Eric Stahl addition was underrated for just a third and a fifth. So like I look at the deals they made, I just don't think they did anything that's pushing them over the edge or getting them to a conversation of like a big contender. But they could surprise teams because of how deep they are up front and they're fit and built for the playoffs. So I'm maybe being generous with the B minus, but I think they made depth moves. And for me, for the Habs, I think they are going to battle. If it's the Leafs, they're going to put up a fight in the playoff round. Nashville Predators. This one, guys, I'm probably giving a B minus, and I could give worse, but this is my mindset here. Nashville's in a playoff spot, and I think it would be a bad message to their fans that they sold here, but I also think in the long run, if they traded guys like Granlund and Holla and got assets back, I think they had the depth to step in. They've had guys that stepped up this year where it's like they'd still be good enough. And if they make the playoffs, it's meant to be. If not, then they draft higher. But I don't know. I don't agree potentially with not trading a guy like Holla. I think you should have just maybe got a third and a fifth round pick back, and it would have worked out if you made the playoffs still. But B minus, I think they got good Branson, and I mean, I should give a worse grade for that, but it was only for a 7th round pick. New Jersey did enough, and they made the moves that they needed to make, and they traded Palmieri when they couldn't re-sign him. I thought that was the right move in getting a 1st round pick. Some people said New Jersey got fleeced. I don't know how they got fleeced. In a market like this, it was Palmieri, and Zajac wasn't going to get a lot. It's not like Zajac's done a lot for the Devils this year, and he's older. So the fact that they got the 1st round pick for me was good enough, and they made a couple small moves. I like the Siegenthaler addition. As a rebuilding team, I was like, why are you giving up the 3rd? But I think Siegenthaler is underrated. So I don't think they did anything dumb. I would maybe give them just like a B plus ranking here. So not a winner or loser, but I liked the moves they made. All right, Islanders. I'll give them a win. I don't think they're the biggest winner of the deadline. They didn't do like a lot, but they made the big addition of acquiring Palmieri. So somewhat winners here. I think they could have done maybe more, maybe another forward up front. I think with Anders Lee there, and this is my mindset, I think with Anders Lee healthy in the lineup, I would have suggested still for them to acquire a forward. So they kind of replaced Palmieri with Lee, but still could have made another addition. Zajac, I guess, is that addition, but he's not going to provide you a lot of offense. So my thing here for the Islanders is if Wahlstrom can perform big in the playoffs, then this is an A trade deadline analysis for me, because I just think they could have made that other move, but they're betting on Wahlstrom being huge for this team. And he showed that he can be huge. He scored big goals already this season, and I like the move they made for Palmieri. And they got depth as well with Coburn. And I think this team is ready to possibly make another run. I think they could do something big here. New York Rangers. So this is a team that was very quiet. So I really can't give them much of a grade other than just the Rangers have a really bright future. And I think they didn't want to mess anything up there. They didn't want to trade guys out. I like the Rangers and what they're building, and I think that they might make a big move in the offseason. Ottawa Senators. I will give them a B+. I like the moves they made, but I'm just surprised Dorian didn't do more. I'm surprised he didn't consider trading Tierney and some of the forwards up front. But you know what? They got pieces back, and I actually really like the underrated pickup on waivers, picking up Victor Mete. So I think Ottawa did enough here. I think some Sens fans probably wanted more. I I'm not going to say they're a loser, but they lost in terms of not getting a first-round pick for a team that's rebuilding. I think always, like, that's why I also say the Buffalo Sabres, they're a loser. They are definitely a loser for this deadline. They didn't get a first-round pick as a rebuilding team. The only reason I'm not saying this for Ottawa is because Ottawa's recouped first-round picks, and they have been able to draft a lot of great players. So my perspective here is they have a lot of guys under contract. They don't have that many rentals, and they moved on from Goodbranson. They moved on from Mike Riley. And I actually like the fact that they got a third-round pick for Mike Riley, and Mike Riley maybe like a year or two ago would have maybe gone through waivers and not thought about twice. So the fact that they got a third for Mike Riley, I think that's why I'm giving them the B+ and the Victor Mete pickup. All right, Flyers. I mean, they didn't do anything. They re-signed Lawton. So for the Flyers, I'm probably going to give them like maybe a C. I don't know. They didn't completely fail. They didn't do anything stupid, but they didn't acquire a defenseman. So I don't know what the Flyers are saying right now. I could give them a D. I could give them an F. But I think the only reason I'm giving them a C is because they didn't panic. And I think maybe they still make the playoffs. Maybe this is just a message to their team that no one's safe in the offseason. I don't know. But I do think the Flyers, I like this Scott Lawton contract, so there's your C. All right, Penguins, I'll give them like a B, B-. I don't think they did anything like big or great. The Jeff Carter edition was, for me, decent. Like, it was okay, it was decent. I think some Pens fans are like hyping it up way too much. Like, Jeff Carter, late 30s at this point, doesn't have very good underlying numbers. He might just be a guy that adds to the power play and the offensive side. So I think the Pens did enough just to add, but they could have added like a good hard depth defenseman, and they could have added like another goalie for insurance, but they did all right. San Jose Sharks, I'll give them a B. Like, they didn't do anything stupid, but they got a couple assets back. They were involved in the 3-team trade, so I think, and they're going to give Barabanov a shot, so the Sharks did fine. Blues. So this one's interesting. Now they've kind of made their way back into a playoff spot. Again, if you want to just give them a B for not doing anything dumb, I guess they kind of just stood pat. I think for the Blues, they could have traded Dunn, they could have traded Hoffman, they could have made some of these trades, but they kind of just were comfortable with what they did. All right, Lightning. I'm going to give them an A because they made a great addition with David Savard. While they gave up a lot, they gave up like the price. David Savard puts this team right back in the favorite spot, I think, for the Stanley Cup. David Savard gives them arguably a top 3 or maybe the best defense group in the league. So David Savard, you're talking about a group with Hedman, Savard, Chernak, McDonough, Sergachev, Foote, and then you have depth pieces in there as well. They also acquired Freddie Claesson. So I think the Lightning won with just that addition alone. Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm giving them an A or A-. I'll say A- because they did pay a lot for Foligno, but a great fit. And I still would have liked to see another guy in that forward group, either a third-line center or a guy on the left side. They were almost not acquiring a depth defenseman, but they got Hutton last second. I really like the Hutton addition. I really like the Riddick addition. All great additions, don't get me wrong. But the Foligno, yes, a little bit overpaid. But if you win the Cup, and Tampa showed it last year, who cares if you give up a first-round pick? So that's what they're targeting, and that's what they're doing. I'm also giving them an A because they didn't give up a top prospect, so that's also a great win there. I would have given them an A+. If they had acquired a guy like Scott Lawton or Eric Haller or something like that, that would have been a big A+ for me. So it's just a little disappointing that they didn't make a move like that, but maybe Kerfoot can really step up in the playoffs, and then that would be a win. And then maybe Robertson, Sandin, guys got to step up for this team, and then maybe they make a run. All right, Vancouver Canucks. I think for this team, yeah, Jordy Ben to the Jets, I don't know what they were doing with the trade with Chicago. Like, when you talk about like trades they could have made, whether it was Sutter or whether it was Rantanen, I just don't get the move where you move Gaudette, who has an offensive upside. He showed he can score. And while he doesn't have the best defensive numbers, I think he was still kind of working on it. And he's still under 25 or in around 24, 25. And Highmore for me is just, you're getting what you like already know from Highmore. He's going to be a fourth line player. Gaudette could be more than a fourth line player. He's shown he can play on the third line and be effective and be offensively gifted and move up in the lineup even more, I think, potentially with good players. So I don't like that move at all. I would probably give him like a C-, D+. Like, they are close to a loser for me in this. The only reason I might not title them as the ultimate losers for the deadline is because they just didn't do that much. Like, losing Gaudette isn't the end of the world. and sure, they got a pick for Ben. Like, I just think right now the Canucks, they have a lot to evaluate, and the signing for Pearson, like, yeah, I would honestly, now thinking about the Pearson, the fact that they're doing Pearson over the priority of Hughes and Pettersson, yeah, I mean, even thinking about that, like, you should say they're a loser, honestly. So Benning definitely is at risk of being fired in the offseason. Golden Knights, I'll give them a B+. I think they were cap strapped and they were only able to do so much, but I really like the Matthias Janmark. So for them, it's a win. I wouldn't say they're the big winners or one of the big winners of the deadline, but the Janmark edition is underrated and they didn't really have to do too much. So I liked what Vegas did. Washington Capitals, this is a tough grading for me. It's really tough because they overpaid to get Mantha, Vrana first and a second. They got a third for Siegenthaler. And they also got Michael Raffle, which was a good addition. I guess I didn't really mention that with the Flyers, so they made that move as well. But I think Washington's probably a B here. I'm not saying they have a bad grade because I thought the other additions they made on top of getting Mantha, and I think Mantha with Backstrom and Oshie is going to be disgusting. So I don't think it's an F, a D, or C. Like, I'm just giving them a B. I think like a B is fair enough for the Caps. So not a winner, not a loser here. You could say they're a loser. I'm sure some people will say they are a loser, but you got to make a risk. I see what they were doing. Mantha is locked up, so it makes sense for the next 3 years when they still want to compete at a high level. I get the perspective of the trade, but it was just way too much. Like a first and a second. If it was like a first-round pick, then I could see the merit. I definitely could see the merit, but like 2 high picks like that, I just didn't get it. So B probably for me is being generous. I wouldn't title them as a loser of the deadline, but that's my opinion. Winnipeg Jets, I'm giving them like a C+, B-. They at least, I would have given them a D if they didn't get Jordy Ben. At least they got someone on the back end. They sent a message that they're making an addition there. I think at the start of the year, them getting Paul Stastny was basically their pre addition to that forward group. So I don't think they needed to make an addition in the forward group. They got Kopp going now, and Lowry's been really good this year. So Kopp and Lowry have been great this year for the Jets. So that's just their own players that have been great and stepping up. So they didn't really need to acquire a guy up front. And then they're going to rely on Hellebuck a lot, but I think I like what the Jets have done here. So winners and losers, I kind of talked about it through. I'll give you 3 winners and 3 losers here. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation on the grades. So one winner, I'm going to give the Detroit Red Wings a big win here. I thought the Red Wings didn't trade, like I said, Glendening or Bernier, but that addition they got, and they made a couple small moves. Stevie Y is a genius. The Vrana first and second. Stevie Y, genius, Red Wings, winner. My second winner, the Toronto Maple Leafs. People might disagree with it, but I think the Leafs are a winner here. They made the additions that covered every need they had, and while I said they could have looked at for a third line